Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brett.
Man, I'm here with the vet, Mr. N. Griffin, and 3 above us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we got 3 guests, 2 repeaters, and 1 new guy. Before we talk about all that, there's a lot going on in the world right now. We got Game 6 of the World Series going on. So if you're catching up with us, thank you, thank you, thank you. Instead of the World Series, but we hope the Astros pull through. Some people hope the Braves, but I'm a Texas guy. And, we couldn't have an all-star game in Georgia, but we can have a damn freaking World Series as we should have had the whole time. And then the second thing is it's got the Virginia elections going on. Yeah, who are they guys? I don't know. They're not the Rangers. I just know that. So, Coach, man, I got a plethora of people on tonight, and we're going to talk about some things we're going to talk about veteran small business and stuff like that, and we're going to talk a little bit about ROTC. And because I found out there's a lot of people where you and I come from that don't know much about ROTC. I was like just steamrolled over about that. So to start out, up to our upper left is Leo Acevedo, who I served with in OIF2. I got the privilege of serving with him while we were in Iraq together. It's a bad motor scooter. He's got 2 children, Isabel and Christian, and he's got a great business that's gone across the nation, which is Dynamic Wallcovering. And that's really about all I'm going to talk about, because he's going to talk about it in your segment. But I'm going to throw some pictures up here and say, hey, welcome, Leo. So what do we got here, man?
That's OIF-2 50 cal in the in those bombed out Air Force barracks that we lived in.
Those were the good old days.
There. Yeah,
Those were the good old days.
A lot of maintenance on myself those days too.
So, and then we got this second picture here. Here we go. So look at that stud. Man, he looks good, don't he?
Like that jacket.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That's a little business development Leo there.
He looks all, I hate to say it, from the Army, he looks all cleaned up there. Where it's normally the other way around, you kind of go downhill a little bit after the Army. Not Leo. He looked good, man. And second thing I got with Leo is he's actually on the site now because he's the boss man and he's got to do things down there, and he's taking time to be with us tonight. So thank you, Leo. And we'll get started here in a second. So next person I got to introduce here is I got to introduce Brett. And Brett's officially is a returnee now. So he's been on here 2 times. And as I stated before, Brett is the second most courageous man I know besides Alan Bailey in that chopper ride, because he was ROTC instructor at University of Kentucky with my son. And, man, I honestly should have you on the Christmas list and be sending you gifts and everything else for enduring that right there, Brett. But it's good to have you on. I'm going to throw a couple pictures up for you, too, as well. Look at that.
Yeah.
What do we got, Brett?
Yeah.
I don't think he changed a bit, to be honest. And then we got here. What do we got here?
Sporting the old UK ROTC hat there at Kings Island, looks like, a little amusement park with my wife. So.
And it's true, you're a Notre Dame fan, right?
I am a Notre Dame fan.
And she's a Bama fan, so okay.
Yeah. I won't hold
it. And then from there, I got my long-lost companion, my battle buddy for life, Mr. Tom Krupp, who we got more shenanigans than we have time to ever do a podcast on. We could do like 3 podcasts on all the shit we got in trouble for. And I was the one going, sir, just go tell him this. And I'd push him in the kidneys. Tom would just go there. Oh, my gosh.
You were horrible, Sir Major. You really
I know. I'm surprised you even got to stay in after everything we did together, to be honest. Oh, my God. It was bad. Yeah. And we served in Afghanistan together later. And but as a young lieutenant and sergeant first class, it was some rough times, to be honest. So I'm going to throw these 2 guys up here. I don't know who these guys are. Oh, my gosh. Look at them.
Wow. Doesn't that scare you? Put some fear in you. Well, so we always got to show the kids, right? It's an obligatory kid picture. But, I was looking through this and I sent this to my boys because, Gunner, the youngest there with the old maroon beret, well, now he's actually wearing one in the 82nd. So he just got done with his first tour of gate guard duty, which was full of shenanigans of his own there. So he's a nice, he's a private there and second of the 325 at Fort Bragg. So very proud of him. And then Cage, of course, went on. He's the old one there, and he's infantryman as well. And he's in the Guard here in Kentucky, and went off to Fort Pickett the other day, just a couple days ago, to do some pre-training because they've got a deployment coming up. So he's really excited about that. So one went active and one went in the Guard, but both infantry guys. Thanks to Brett Meadows, because Brett put him down on his couch in his office one day, and they came out, and they, hey, Brett, you really need to tell him what it's really like. I don't want him to do this stuff, right? And of course, they came out laughing, giggling, and like, we're in, Dad. So I blame it all on Brett.
That's true.
You got to love that. So I mean, we got a little Army camaraderie going on here. We left you almost like we got you outnumbered there, Coach. And but I'm going to throw it to you, and I think we can get started here.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more podcasts where I feel like I am the unintelligent one in the room, have no idea about some of this stuff.
No.
The good thing about it is I love to read. I love to watch, a lot of documentaries. So being a part of a lot of these podcasts where there's a lot of Army talk or military talk, I'm learning things. Like you said something about the ROTC earlier. I have no idea about the ROTC, to be honest with you, Vet. So, hey, I'm going to learn something tonight. But one thing that I do know about is I owned a small business, actually two of them, for about 18 years. So I'm going to love talking to Leo first about what is the difference between, starting a business as a civilian. And, pretty much, when I talk about it in economics class, there's about 3 or 4 ways that you can start a business, with capital and how you can raise that capital. But I do know there are some programs that I know nothing about. So what I hope to learn about is not only about the small business, but also some of the unique programs that veterans have to start small business that we hope, more and more people can learn about that are veterans that are watching this show. So Leo, I'm going to throw this out to you. Explain your small business, what all it encompasses and how you started that and what it's like on a day-to-day basis to be a small business owner, because a lot of people just think, oh, you're your business owner and it's the greatest thing ever. But what people don't realize is it's about a 7-day a week job mentally. And a lot of times it might be close to that physically. But people just think, oh, I just want to own my own business. Leo, tell them what it's all about.
Well, you're right. It's definitely 7 days a week kind of gig. I knew about my second or 2 years and 6 months into U.S. Army time that I was making a plan to exit and hit the ground running in a small business. I'm actually a second generation wall-covering installer by trade, so I already had an idea before I came out. So that did give me somewhat of an edge, but I had no idea about business. So I did make a small business plan and saved up some money before my exit, and really just took it from there. Bought some tools, bought a truck. You can do that in the trades. If you want to be in a logistic business or some other different industry, there might be a little bit more planning, but I had a foot in the door, so to speak. So throughout the years, you mentioned funding. Throughout the years, it's been blood, sweat, and tears until just a few years ago. I have some other folks who've always taken interest in me, and they kind of put me in the right direction. I've been very fortunate to have some mentors, which is very important if you're going to seek out a small business. If there's someone that's close to you or someone that's inspiring you, or you're that fourth man in the room and those 3 other are the guys that are bringing you up to that next level, then always ask those questions. For me, I found a lot of resources just going to the VA website. There's links there that can take you into what used to be the CVE program, which is a certification program. There's also it's called the OSBADU. It's an acronym. It's a very long acronym, but it's for small and disadvantaged businesses and service disabled folks to go there. And they have online courses. They have webinars. They put you with a procurement technical assistant offices in your local area, and those procurement offices kind of walk you through the applications. Another great resource is in the SBA, on the SBA website. there's actually a veterans portion there. And as veterans, the SBA and the VA are now working together. And what's happened recently is that the SBA actually has their own money now. We used to have to fill out an application, go to a bank and say, hey, bank, here I am. Do you see enough potential in me? And the bank would say yay or nay. And then they would send it up to the VA or to the SBA. Now the SBA has their own money. So a veteran with more than 0% of a disability can qualify for up to $350,000 worth of funding, depending on their business plan and what type of venture they're going after. So that's one resource. Using the other resources that I've used, which one of them is a SCORE office, which is a group of businessmen and women who have already lived. Like you said, you had 2 small businesses. You would be a perfect fit for the SCORE program. And we go there and we ask questions, how do I go to the state, the Secretary of State, and register my LLC? Or do I need to be a corporation? Should I be a sole member? Should I have some other members? Do I want to sell a portion of my company to start? Or should I wait till it has some value? Those are very important questions. How do I get an EIN? Those things are essential for you to take that next step. And it's not just registering with the state. There's a lot more things going on there. So it is very involved. I've tried to use a lot of the resources by going to webinars and in-person conferences and listening to the folks that have the experience. I've been to several veteran conferences, and in the state of Missouri, they hold a lot of what's called procurement conferences. And there's usually some type of armed forces there. I went to one 2 weeks ago, and I got to sit with the commanding officer for Whiteman Air Force Base, and he's the wing commander for the bombers. And he told us all about how if you need help, you can come there and get help. And they have lots of contracts to give out. So, we as veterans just have to take that first step. And to be honest with you, it's out there. There's a lot of education and there's a lot of support.
Well, that's great. I think a lot of times when people think about getting into business, one of the things that you said first, Leo, is you had a business plan or a plan early on. I think a lot of people have a lot of unrealistic expectations because they have something that they're passionate about and they really are good at it, whatever that trade or skill might be, but really they don't have enough information either by not planning correctly, or they don't have enough information by speaking to somebody that's, as you call it, a mentor, someone else has already been successful in the business. And that's what I did. There was someone that I knew that had the first business I had was a collection agency. And I actually said to this guy, hey, I used to work for him. Can I come learn from you? Because I'm thinking about opening up my own collection agency. And he was like, absolutely. So just for a few days, I went and just kind of shadowed what he did and understood then what I needed to do. And also, I think a lot of people don't realize, and it's one of the things that you're talking about with the funding of when you get into business, you said you'd save some money up. We tell our students that, there's gifts, there's investments, you can go get credit, or you can save up money, or you can find an investor. But there's different ways to start the business. And I think a lot of times people have a great idea and they're passionate about something, but they don't have a plan and they don't know how to get funding to even put a plan in motion. So looks like what you have done is you were prepared mentally for the plan, but then you figure it out with all these things that the website had and the Veterans Administration had for you, how to take advantage of the education that's out there. So I think that's an unbelievable way to do it. And I hope somebody that getting into business would take advantage of anything they can find and help out there by yourself.
Truly, one of the greatest resources is called the PTAC, and that's a Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And those are all over the United States, and those are funded by our tax dollars. And what they do is they get with one of the state universities and a couple of other entities, and they set up online programs, in-person programs. You can walk in that door with a pen and a piece of paper, and you'll walk out with a wealth of information. You'll need 6 months to go through it. and that's how much they got in there. And a lot of that stuff is they give you a password, you log in, and when you have time, you worked 8 hours, you took a shower, you got an hour this evening, you sit down and you grind it, because that's what it's about. Ultimately, what are you putting in after your regular hours? What are you feeding your brain after you worked your muscles? What are you propelling yourself with? What's going to be your next step? Because you're not going to go from step 1 to step 42. No, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and you're going to fall down 5 times at 3, and you better stand up and get to number 4. And that's really what it takes. You can find the resources, but you really got to use them to get ahead.
That's great. Now, Brett and Tom, I want to kind of ask y'all this. There's a lot of benefits that someone like myself as a civilian that doesn't know about that are there for veteran programs, not just for small business, but other veteran programs that you can use for business or for, life outside and after getting out of military. What are some that you maybe personally have used that you want to discuss, or maybe some that you do know that people that have taken advantage of programs that the government sets up for veterans? Because you guys, are putting life on hold a lot of times. Like, Sergeant Major was 30 years, correct? You put your personal life on hold for 30 years, and then you come
31.
you come back into what we call, I'm in prison every day with prison. They call it the free world. But at that point in time, you've got to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life, and to have programs set up to help you guys, I think is amazing. So maybe Brett, talk about that, and Tom, if you've used any, and kind of educate me on something y'all have done.
I tell you, the biggest benefit for me was I never wanted to start my own business. I was never I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but the education benefits through the Army was probably the best thing. Now, you'll learn later when Tom talks about, ROTC, that every commissioned officer obviously graduates from college and gets a degree. But for me, the best benefits for the Army that I used were the education benefits. I finished my undergraduate degree, and then when I was at the University of Kentucky, I actually finished 2 separate master's programs, one at the University of Louisville, one at the University of Kentucky. And then for me, I just wanted to get out of the Army. I wanted to work a few years, and then I wanted to retire, like bow out gracefully, if you will. But to be able, as an enlisted soldier, I never paid a dime for any of my education. But to leave with 2 master's degrees through some of the educational opportunities that we'll talk about later was, to me, one of the best benefits. As I went back into the civilian workforce, I think the one thing, if I was talking to veterans, that I would tell them, if you're getting out and you're retired, one thing that I guess I took for granted was your age, right? So it's not age discrimination. I don't want to throw that out there. But coming out as 24 years in the military, I got 2 master's degrees, all this honorable service and all this stuff I've done. But when you go into the job market, it's pretty difficult because, most of us are, in our late 40s, and who are you going to hire? A kid with a graduate degree that's 22, or a guy that's 50 years old and probably only going to work for you for about 10 years. So there's some things I would look at that way. I obviously looked at troops to teachers as well, which is an opportunity for soldiers who are retiring to work in some, I guess, school districts that based on scores, you could get a job, or you could get submitted to be a teacher there. But the areas that they wanted you to work, most times kind of inner city or large metropolitan areas, that's just not where I wanted to work. But I looked into that as well.
Yeah, just a caveat on that, because that's what officers do, right? Caveat. So Brett got it. The Troop to Teachers program is unfunded now. It's been rolled up until the new administration decides to put money into it, which is doubtful. That it's no longer there, and honestly, it didn't really provide much money anyway. Definitely not enough to move, like Brett said. If you're gonna teach or something, and that was always something I think, that people thought about when they were getting out or transitioning. I think that maybe not so much for us because we had just got out, and definitely not for Leo because he had gotten out a while ago. Before the Army, I think, was really concerned with credentialing and getting people, helping with turning MOSs into certifications. Because I think the biggest thing for me, I think there's a lot of services out there, and I think a lot of people take advantage of them. And I mean, I even started. I mean, I was writing down some stuff that Leo said, because I have no idea, unless you seek out those things like Leo did, you're not going to find. I mean, it's really hard. It's not thrown in your lap. Like I think a lot of people, when they're getting out, make a mistake that a lot of these things might be thrown into their lap. But at least when it comes to credentialing, that was probably the biggest thing that I saw when I got out, was that it was very hard to turn my experience into anything that was relatable in the civilian world. Anything. I mean, because your experiences in the military, I found, are so unique and mysterious to 99.9% of the world, that who hires, that that was very hard to do that. And so I think that if I was going to give any advice to any young or older person, whatever age, it would be to take advantage of the new certification credentialing money that the Army is putting out. We call it CA money, credentialing assistance, as opposed to TA, tuition assistance. It's a separate pot of money, and soldiers are getting that now. And actually the Guard and Reserve can get it too. So it's not just for National Guard, or it's not just for active duty. But basically, it's money towards getting a certification like an EMT certification, or a cybersecurity certification, or and a lot of those things that businesses, I think, and people are really looking for, even opposed to, or not opposed to, but in addition to bachelor's and master's degrees, which are kind of like your management positions, right? So if you want to get in and on the ground floor in something, I think it's really worthwhile to look at what the military is offering money, and a lot, and there's some even for spouses, like mycca.com is money for spouses, dependents, that is, spouses and children, to go and get a non-credit, so non-college credit, right, credential, and you can have up to a few thousand. The other thing that's out there now is something called the Vet Tech program. The Vet Tech program is a federal program that transitioning veterans can go on to, and a lot of businesses are, at least and it's all technical, right? So it's cybersecurity, data, software engineering, data management, data knowledge management type of certifications again, right? Certifications that apart from the GI Bill, it doesn't take away from your GI Bill or any other benefits. You can use this money to go to, a 6 month, a 2 month, a couple of weeks, I think, courses that are in technical fields, and get a certification in it. So the Vet Tech program, now every year, the last like 3 years, they've been running out of money, like almost immediately. So in October, right? It's typically about right now they run out of money, and I think they already have for the year. But you can apply for it, and all you have to be is a veteran. I mean, I don't even know if you have to have a certain, type of discharge, okay? But you'd have to go there to look. But if you look at the Vet Tech program, it's another one of those that is trying to bridge the skills gap, the skills gap in technical fields that everybody's buzzing about, right, when it comes to cyber skills and stuff. So and there's some other vocational programs too. There's a big push for DoD Skill Bridge. I wish that I could have maybe got onto a DoD Skill Bridge, because the DoD Skill Bridge allows you to be on active duty for an entire year and do an apprenticeship with a company, so that you then get hired, because companies don't want to hire you unless they know you, right? As you build that trust and stuff on it. So there's that DoD Skill Bridge. They're expanding those internships across the United States. So those are kind of three things that I would tell people to look into. For me, I don't got no skill sets, and I don't really care. I mean, I'm like Brett. I'm like, I just want to, retire and, not have anybody talk to me anymore. So it's a little different for me. but there's some great programs out there, and I think the Army's doing a lot, at least as far as the Army's concerned. But the DoD for sure would to help out in some of these areas.
Well, Vet, I mean, one of the things, and before we kick it back to Leo to find out a little bit more about his business, I do want to ask you. I mean, one of the things when you and I became back friends again after a number of years of not, I never knew about a couple programs that are probably very simple programs for you guys to know is, but number one, the property tax break you get in Texas that you and I discussed, because, down here where I live, even though it's in the country, they kill you because it's Smith County on your property taxes. And that's something that being a veteran, really helps you with actually a lot. And then I know you're taking Gunner around checking out colleges in Texas. And that's another thing that veterans get to, and they should get, not only themselves get educated, like we are talking about Brett was, but also their families too. So, Vet, talk a little bit about that before we kick it to Leo, but those are just a couple of things that are just, another thing that are amazing for veterans.
So first I'll say on the property tax in the state of Texas, that depends on your level of disability. If you're 70% or higher, they'll chip away at it. If you're 100% disabled, you won't pay property tax in the state of Texas on the place that you live on. So that's that right there. But you have to be 100% disabled. On far as the schooling, so there's the Hazelwood Act, which if you enlisted in the Army from the state of Texas before you were a resident of Texas prior, you get out pretty much as long as it's an honorable discharge. They will pay for college up to so many hours for one person. But if you're 100% disabled, it can go to all your children. And so that's kind of a cool thing. And that's kind of what we're doing with Gunner, is that right there. One thing I do want to talk about, though, real quick before we get to Leo is, and so people will understand this, is Leo has worked with the SBA and the VA on his part, from what I understand, the way he articulated everything. When I was at TACOM, my last job, they have a small business administration there, and understand we're doing stuff not really locally, but for the Army, outfit the Army and certain things. And so we're trying to do 2 to 3 year contracts for the industrial base. So, okay, what does that mean? If I'm AM General who produces a Humvee and I need alternators, if Leo has a company that can produce alternators for the same price, we would rather buy from a small business organization that's veteran owned than buy from a big business, because we have so much quota. We have to at least meet 3% of that. And because a lot of small businesses tend to fail first article testing regards to that, we would go to as many as possible so we can accommodate that 3% quota that we have to meet. Because there's a lot of things small business won't compete for. So we're already behind the power curve when I was at TACOM in regards to that. So what they can do, we would always award them that contract. They'd meet the first article test, they'd be good to go. If they didn't, then I'm kind of stuck because I got somebody who can't meet the contract, so I got to find another small business. So they were really searching, and understand they outfitted 60% of the Army's inventory. So there's a lot of look into the small business and wanting to work with small businesses. So that's a different aspect of it from just the small business loan. But getting the government contract is huge, because nobody's money is as good as government's money. I just throw it out there. But anyway, so I'll kick it back to you, Coach, for Leo, because Leo got to explain some things to us about his place. So,
well, I'm just going to step out of the way, because one of the things I wanted to find out from you, Leo, was not only about your business. Tell us, the name of your business. Give us a little advertising for your business, because, like I think the vet had said earlier to us, that this is a nationwide business that you have. So, there's a lot of people that listen to this that maybe need some help.
So, Dynamic Wallcovering LLC is a company that I started in 2006 in January. And so we're about 16 years in now since the service. We are a nationwide service, painting and wall covering, primarily commercial wall coverings. We do installations in hospitals, nursing homes, malls, restaurants, retail stores. The bulk of our business is usually in hospitality. We do anywhere from 20,000 to 35,000 linear yards of wall covering a year. That takes a substantial amount of manpower and a lot of miles on the road. Something that's important that we've been doing in the last few years is that we've been developing into the federal market. So we have our service disabled veteran small business certification from the certification department from the VA. And that gives us an opportunity to participate in what are called set-asides. So we're in the process of bidding contracts that the government actually sets aside money in a bucket for us, for all of us veterans. So to say something to Tom and to Brett, the government buys everything at the tune of $800 billion a year. So every day there's several $billion worth of contracts that come out. And to come back around to Top's comment, to Sergeant Major's comment earlier about him finding that small business, there are many programs that work for us service disabled veterans because we're considered small disadvantaged businesses. So those contracts are usually called sole source. If we make ourselves available to the Department of Defense and other government agencies and simply present ourselves and communicate with those agencies, I work as a pre-solicitation. It's what I've been doing the last several months. And we build and cultivate the relationships, let them know what we can do. So as those dollars get put in those buckets, they know where to find us. So just remember that the government does buy every single thing. There was a lot of talk about the VetTech program that Tom was mentioning about. The IT world is huge for the DoD right now in all agencies. So anybody that's thinking about going in that direction, that's a great direction. Use those Army dollars before you get out or while you're transitioning out, especially if you can use that program where you can go work for a company for a year, learn about that procurement, learn about sole sourcing, learn about how the government communicates with the civilian world in order to get what they need and get the mission complete. So to go back to my business, we're actually developing into a general construction company called Ozark Constructors. It's a division of Dynamic Wallcovering. So we're going to start working in the area of heavy and civil construction, building levees, placing riprap, moving dirt, grading, building bridges, streets, highways, roads, sewer systems, water treatment plants, and all types of those in that particular industry. You got something for me there, Coach?
Well, no, I think what we're going to do is go to the vet. He's probably going to give us an advertisement, move on. But I just want to tell you, thanks so much for giving us the information on the businesses, because there's a lot of people that, like when I teach my guys here, a lot of the guys are getting out of prison, just something totally different. They're going to really need to probably figure out a way to go into business for themselves to immediately. And we teach them how to have those skills of doing that. One of the things we teach them is a business plan up front. Also, the 4 ways that they can get funding for that, just to have them, come out with that type of skill set. So actually to have the information for veterans that are listening to this, because we do know there's some veterans that listen. I mean, like you said, there's billions of dollars sitting there could be used, but without knowing how to do it and where to go, it's like you're lost. So I really appreciate the information. I'm sure a lot of people do too, Leo.
The PTAC is the one thing that, and I know that's not necessarily in line with the VA, but they are the ones, our tax dollars go to those programs and they gather all that information for us. So you go in there and you tell them, hey, I'm a veteran, or this is my situation. I'm a small business. I'm a women-owned business. There's a lot of different designations that can be used. And the nice thing about being a small business is that the government lets us, as long as we're not worth $4 million when we start our businesses, we're actually a disadvantaged business. So that gives us a whole lot of resources. And most of us who are starting a business at that time do not have that kind of cash or assets. So it's all available. The help is all available.
So with that right there, I got to break out an advertisement here real quick. And speaking of small business owners and one that's a veteran, here's Metro Geek right here. So for all your needs for computer work and stuff, if you're in the Granbury, Texas area, these guys help provide us the show. And you can reach them at 1-877-967-GEEK or metrogeek.com. Great guy there. I've known him a long time. Second thing is, I got to throw this out here because, you know, we are the Coach and the Vet, and this is how we pay for things is go to our website and buy some stuff like this right here or this right here, or the coach's favorite jacket in the world is that one right there. And that's how we keep our podcast going. So we ask for you to check it out. Moving along, I got to sit here and I got to throw out some questions here to a little bit of everybody. I'm going to start off, though, with Leo. During the time you graduated high school, did anybody ever come to you? And then I'm going to move it over to Brett and Tom after that. But did anybody ever come to you about going to college to go to ROTC or anything like that?
No. The most I saw of anything to do with the military was when they were collecting money, handing out the poppies at the four-way street across from the high school. So there wasn't. We saw, you know, the guard would drive by every once in a while, but did anybody? Oh, one time we had to take an ASVAB test. That's it.
Yeah. So, Leo, what I've discovered, and I'm going to throw it over to Tom. He normally likes to defer to Brett. I know how he operates a lot of times. And then I'll throw it to Brett, but he might defer it. But I've discovered that many in this area do not understand the ROTC program, even what it stands for, that it can assist them to get through college as well. So, Tom, I'm going to throw it to you, and then Brett's going to tag on. And I know y'all got a little thing worked out here. So,
no, hey, thanks. Yeah, so ROTC, I never, you know, get tired of talking about it because I think it's the greatest program ever. I mean, it got me to where, you know, I'm on here talking with a 2-star sergeant major about anything that I want, right? I mean, it's pretty great. So, yeah, you know, when it comes to ROTC, you know, the Army is the number one, well, the DOD, but the Army is the number one scholarship agency in the United States. And it's always shocking, I think, when, you know, you used to kind of play a game to go out to the high schools and stuff and talk to folks about scholarships and counselors. And they were always shocked when I said that. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you know, there's all these national whomever scholarships. And like, no. The Army pays the most out of everybody and gives the most scholarships, period. You know, and it's like, we didn't even know the Army would send you to college. Wait, are you even college educated in the Army? You know, that's the big thing, right? So, yeah, it's a great program. There's many ways to do it. But the main thing is you can go to goarmy.com, ROTC. You can just Google goarmy.com, ROTC, and you can get the scoop on all the ROTCs, 275-ish ROTCs across the country. There's one next to you, you know, I mean, everywhere. There's one down in Guam and you know, the Virgin Islands as well. And I didn't get assigned there, so that I'm still poisoned about that from the Army. I didn't get those assignments, but did end up with UK with Brett, and Brett was a godsend because there's a lot of technical, tactical things you got to teach kids if they're going to head off and be lieutenants, right, one day. And so Brett was the guy to do that. And we also had the great opportunity, a really fun opportunity, to have Sergeant Major Griffin's son come through the program as well. And, you know, we all got skin in the game. Brett's son, I believe, is in the program. He's still in, right, Brett? And it's handed over to Brett. So go ahead, take it away, Brett. You can continue.
All right. So let me tell you the thing that I want to talk about with ROTC. It took me 6 months of coming off of active duty to get there to understand how many different scholarships there are. All right. So I would tell you that if you're interested, the bulk of these schools, right, have what they call a recruiting operations officer. All right. Call the University of Kentucky, a guy named Alan Back, talk to him. All right. But these schools have these civilian or DOD employees that are there to handle ROTC questions. The reason why I say if you're interested in serving or getting your college paid for and then a commitment to service later is because you have the national scholarship, all right, and these are boards for seniors in high school. And right now they have boards that meet October, January, and March. And these boards are national boards. It's quite an extensive packet. Like Tom was saying, you go on to Go Army, the website, and then you actually submit an application. You have to take some little PT test, and you have to interview. I know Colonel Krupp had done a ton of these, but you have to interview high school students as a part of your packet. What I want to talk about, and this is what I talk about now that I teach JROTC at the high school level, is there's nothing better, in my opinion, than some of these scholarships for a number of reasons. So whether it's a national scholarship, whether you join the National Guard, you got to look at your specific state. Some are different, or the reserves. But these scholarships, like in Kentucky, and I'll toot Kentucky's horn, but my son's on a Minuteman scholarship, and he went to basic training. He went to AIT, and the state picks up his tuition to any four-year public university. The Minuteman scholarship pays him $10,000 a year for room and board, and then they give these individual students $420 a month that are under contract as a stipend to offset some of their living costs. Now, they give them $1,200 for books a year, and it's a very complex thing. Whether you're looking at, there's scholarships to later serve on active duty. There's guaranteed reserve forces duty, which include the reserves, the National Guard. I will tell you that it is so complex that there's not enough time in a 1-hour podcast to explain all the benefits and all the options. So what I want to talk about, and I'll try to be brief, is the support of ROTC. Yes, you get your college paid for, but when you look at is things that are basically statistical data, right? So when you look at retention rates, right, and you look at graduation rates over a 6-year period, the first time a student enters college is when Colonel Krupp and I were at UK, the average 4-year public university, looking at, across Kentucky, they have about a 60% at best, usually about 50% graduation rate. But our ROTC cadets, it was always up in the upper 90s. And the reason why is it's such a benefit, me personally coming from like a lower socioeconomic status home, is ROTC pays your tuition, all right? They give you a stipend, they pay for your books, and then it allows you to go to college and concentrate solely on college. And you're not working 30 hours at a mall or at night working third shift or whatever. But there's requirements and there's stipulations to serve. But the thing I enjoy the most about ROTC, right, is it's no different. Like when Ty went through, or any kid that goes through my program, Colonel Krupp and I, Brandon Smith, when we started, there was 3 of us at the University of Kentucky, and we treat these individuals just like, like they're soldiers. Their health and welfare is foremost. I've had kids call me, and Colonel Krupp will attest to this, at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I go, I pick them up, I take care of them, and it's a network. When you come into the university as a freshman, you have 200 and some participating cadets at the University of Kentucky, and you go into a cohort, right? A group of friends. And that's one of the biggest things is the group, the camaraderie, the retention rates, the graduation rates. And yes, you have to serve. And some of these kids are probably the finest kids you'll see across the country. Many of them second, third, fourth generation, serving. But ROTC is, like Colonel Krupp said, it's a godsend. And I wish more kids would take advantage of it.
Brett, I'll throw something here. First of all, you wasn't supposed to talk about my son at 2 in the morning, all those times y'all had to go pick him up. That was the first thing there. So, but moving along. So I inquired about one of the colleges my son went and visited down in, and the ROTC program definitely varies from state to state on the benefits that the student will receive. And that's a fact, because one of the schools that my son inquired about, the instructor explains that the freshman year they may give $1,000 scholarship, but once they lock them into a 3-year scholarship, they don't do really nothing until they lock them into a 3-year scholarship, their sophomore to senior year. And I also know, like when I was in Michigan, Michigan would give a certain scholarship, but they would only give so much. But if you cross the border down to Notre Dame, they'd pay for everything, and it was just kind of unique how it is. But it's a means. And I say this, I've subbed a few times. It's a means to, nobody has an excuse for not going to college, because if you want to hard enough, even here in Texas, if it's the standard across Texas, I don't know, you get your way through the first year, and then you got a means to be able to pay for your college if you needed to. You just might have to do a little PT and, act like a soldier for a couple of years and all that other stuff. It's just how it is. So I'm going to throw this out here first is, You know, Leo, I will tell you, all when you and I were in the same unit together, all our officers but one. No, I think all our officers were non-West Pointers, and they were all ROTC, and two of them were OCS people, is what it was. So the ROTC is very prevalent in the Army. I don't know if you knew that or not, Leo. And but looking back, our commander was OCS. There was another guy OCS, and the rest were all ROTC cadets that became lieutenants. So my question, though, to Tom and to Brett is, do you have to commission for this program? Do you have to become an active duty officer? Because people don't on the outside don't know these answers, you know. And I asked a lot of these questions to you, Tom, when my son was going through, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to throw it out to both of y'all on this here as we kind of circle the wagon. I understand we don't have a whole couple hours to talk like we'd like to on this, Brett, but go ahead. So
sure. Yeah, I'll just jump in first. So the key thing is, yeah, even if you're on active duty, I mean, or in the Guard or Reserve, a lot of times you don't know, and the things change all the time. So what I would say is, like what Brett said, the best thing to do is whatever school you're interested in, start gathering that information. It doesn't matter if you're a high schooler going into college, or you are a non-traditional, meaning a mature student, someone going back to school, or you want to go to community college first or something like this, or you're finishing your degree, because all of those options have an ROTC that you can do. You could do a couple years in the community college, transfer to the university to finish your degree, and we all have relationships. We being, ROTCs, and I'm remembering when I was at UK, and we had a relationship with the Bluegrass Community Technical College where you could go, for half the price for your first couple years and be an ROTC. And then you would just come do your ROTC class at UK. So there's ways to do this, but the key is this: find out the schools that you want to go to, okay, and then look and see what those benefits are by talking to the ROO, the recruiting operations officer at the school. And if you don't get a good vibe from them, then don't go. Find one you get a good vibe from that wants you there, right? But the key is always, if you're going to get a scholarship, you have to make yourself worth the government spending money on, which means you got to have tried beforehand, right? You need to, do well in high school and academics, and try to maintain some physical fitness to a certain degree. And then, of course, propensity to serve, right? I think that turns off a lot of people because they just don't understand what the military even means. And just to answer your question right up, Sergeant Major, is that no, you don't have to be on active duty. There's a Guard and Reserve option when you graduate. In fact, you have to compete to be on active duty these days. Like, when I commissioned, it was like, everybody gets active duty, unless, you don't want it, right? And there's so many different ways to serve. The Guard and Reserve are your weekend duty, basically, plus drill time and field time, and every few years maybe doing something that's a little longer, as opposed to active duty for a minimum commitment of 8 years, right? 4 years active, typically 4 to 5, and the rest in the individual ready reserve, which is a non-active participation. Your name's on the rolls. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways to serve and a whole bunch of ways to do it. So the best thing to do is always find out the schools that you're interested in, talk to those recruiting operations officers, give them a call. Every single one of these schools has a website too, ROTC website. You can look up ROTC at the University of Notre Dame, and you can go right there and find out, who to call, who to talk to about it. For those people that are on active duty or in the Guard or Reserve and wanting to, maybe become an officer or thinking about it, that's really the first stop. But there's so many different ways to do it that it's that you have to talk to somebody that's in it right now, which would be those recruiting operations officers at the school.
Vet, there's some things I'd like to talk about. Is when he talks about there's multiple ways to get in, there's this perception that you have to be this high school senior competing against other kids in the country, right? but it's not the case, you know. And we've had it happen at UK. You can actually have your bachelor's degree and be, you know, going into 2-year graduate program and going to ROTC. You can go in as a sophomore, you know, that's already in college, and there's campus-based scholarships and there's options. So there are so many options. It's not just, and there's this perception that it's high school kids and those are the ones we're offering scholarships to, but the majority of the cases that we get are National Guardsmen who are there on Minutemen at the University of Kentucky, especially because of our benefits here in Kentucky. And then, like I said, we have walked around on campus and talked to kids in the dining facility there and ended up getting kids into the program. So, and the one thing that I'll tell you is for listeners is anybody going to college can take ROTC, you know, their freshman and sophomore year, and you don't have a commitment. It's something that you can take as a class, you know, and we've all had them. We have PT, which is like KHP or like a PT program. It's a college credit course. So PT is actually a college class. You know, American Military Sciences, that's a class. You can take that as a freshman and a sophomore with no commitment to the Army. It's once you get into that junior year, that last couple of years, that you basically have to have a commitment to serve. So I will tell you this. I know in my head, it took me 6 months to figure out even the number of scholarships and ways, and I'm still not the best at it. And like Tom said, it changes every year, different administration. So the best option, and there's thousands of them, is to just call the recruiting operations officer, ROTC, and look at some of the options they have, and especially the National Guard and the reserves, wherever you're at, especially state benefits vary immensely.
Coach, you got any questions on this here?
Not really. I'm just taking in all the information. I'm like how you are giving information for you know, the ROTC. A lot of, like I said, I don't know anything about it. We have a very large high school here in White House, and I don't ever hear anything about it. I think it's just something that, you know, when we were growing up, we heard a whole lot more about it than we do now. And I don't know if that's just, you know, the sign of the times or what's going on, but just to hear the information is needed.
Yeah. Actually, the high school in Tyler was seeking somebody to go down there to be the ROTC, a JROTC guy. And I said, ain't no way. I ain't driving an hour and 10 minutes down there every day. So, but anyway, but it would have been fun. I will say that. But I think this is great. And I think in America, as much as we want to say it, there's no excuse for your child not going to college if they want to go. There's always a means to get them there. And surprisingly, Leo, I don't know, when you and I were in together, I don't know what the percentage, I was a bad first sergeant. I don't know what the percentage of our troops that had college there. But I will say when I was with Tom at a battalion sergeant major, we actually had a pretty high percent of kids that at least had some college or 2-year degree or 4-year degree. And I was thinking it was like 56 or 58%. And people don't realize that that's not a bad percentage, you know, to be quite honest, in the Army. And people think the Army's uneducated. They're far from it. You'll see a lot of people with degrees in the Army. So just something I want to throw out there before we wrap it all up, and I'm going to throw it around the room here. So, Coach, I know you got a couple of things, and then I'm going to throw it up to Leo for closing comments and give him a minute, give Brett a minute, and give Tom like 20 seconds, but a minute.
Well, I'm going to change. I'm just going to change the subject a little bit because you talked about it at the beginning. There's so many things going on tonight. I just looked at the World Series game 6. Looks like the Atlanta just went up 5-0 in the 5th, which is interesting. And the pitcher for the Braves, they're saying is having an amazing night. Also, looking at Virginia's race with about 83% of the votes in, there's about a 200,000 lead for the Republican. A lot of places, even on Drudge Report, are saying it's pretty much over, but you're never going to call it over because Fairfax is the big one. But I just looked at Fairfax County, and Fairfax, as of right now, is 87% reported. So there's not going to be much of a pickup there either. So this one's looks like it's about over. The lieutenant governor and the other race there are all swinging about 53 to 44%.
Wow. So, Leo, it's all yours, man.
So, first of all, thanks for having me. The one thing I really want to push out there is that if you're a veteran, get your service disabled veteran certification from the VA and the SBA. With a 0 rating, as long as you've got a rating started, you qualify for the application. Get that certification and develop it. That's what I can share with you. And use the PTAC. Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
So just to explain for people that are non-veterans and for you, Coach, when you get looked at and evaluated for disability, if you have so many problems with you, but they don't give you a rating at all, but if they, like, say your knees are bad, they give you a 0 rating, that means you can increase it later. And that means they acknowledge that something's there. They're just not enough to get a disability. But if they say there's no rating, you're hosed on that. So anyway, I'm going to throw it over to Brett now.
I know a lot of times for the last 20 years, everybody talks about going to college. I just want to throw one thing. If you're not interested in college, look at your state, the Kentucky National Guard. All you have to do is be a member, and they'll pay your tuition and fees at a public university, but they also include any technical school. So if you're one of those guys that want to go out and work on trucks, join the Kentucky National Guard. The community and technical system here in Kentucky is actually really good. They'll pay for that as well without any service obligation on the back end. So that's something to look at as well. Mm-hmm.
Hey, thanks guys for having me on. And thanks, Leo. I mean, that's really great information. I'm always looking for like a book or something written by a veteran that's something like Boots to Business or something like that for these guys, because I think it's so important. There's so much information out there, from that would really be helpful for people. And although I think that we're trying to do a better job at it, I think there's a lot more to be done.
I agree there on that. Go ahead, Theo. I'm sorry.
If I could add one thing, it is National Veterans Small Business Week. So if anyone that's listening wants to go to the SBA website, there's actually a link there. There's going to be webinars on all week, so you can learn how to go from boots to the ground, and it's all free.
Cool. Go ahead, Coach.
Well, I just want to thank, some of the podcasts are something that I'm not really have a lot of information to give, but that doesn't bother me. What I really like is that we have information to give to people that listen to our podcast. I do know that we have veterans that listen, and a podcast like this gives out information for people that might be thinking about doing something but don't have an idea how to do it. And I think the information that Tom, Brett, and Leo gave tonight, maybe it would help somebody go, you know what, maybe I'm going to try to do that, because it's just, Brett said something earlier that it took 6 full months to do something. And there's a lot of things that we do. We have a disabled son that sometimes we just feel like, well, this is why people give up, because there's so many steps to take to get government help. I think sometimes it's set up not to fail, but it's just there's so many steps of bureaucracy that we have to go through that it's become sometimes a full-time job just to get the funding. But when you hear information from Leo or Brett or even Tom that gives you maybe a short way to do it, I think this is what this podcast was really all about. Well,
so 2 things I'm going to throw out there is in the 50s, right after World War II, so many businesses were built off the backs of veterans during that time. It perpetuated our country to where it is. And I think we're reliving those times right now. I truly do. I think we relive those. We're almost in every commodity there is. There's a veteran there. Does that mean they're leading it? No, they might be the engineer. They might be the small business owner. Some of them may be leading it. Who knows? But I'll give you a great example. Black Rifle Coffee Company just went and is going on the stock market here soon. $1.8 billion off of some guys from special forces that just want to make some freaking coffee and compete with Starbucks, and they're knocking it out of the park. And they got great videos too. So, but who can go wrong with a veteran company like that? So take the time. If you want to do a veteran small business, get after it, because we're going to buy your stuff. It's just how it is. With that, we got to get the flock out of here. And I got to say, from the coach
and to the vet,
stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.